Welcome to the Farmish Kind of Life podcast, where we talk about homesteading stuff and life stuff and everything in between. Join me, Amy Dingman, as we explore big questions on a little farm. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Farmish Kind of Life podcast. Today is October 22nd, 2024. This is episode 295. How are you today? October is just about on her way out, and I'm sitting here thinking, yeah, I feel like the year has flown by and yet not flown by. And it kind of did fly by. And when I say things like that, I feel very old. I feel like that is something that older people say, which is actually a really great segue into what our topic is today. The topic we're talking about is you've got to fight for your right to get older. Today we are talking about aging and some weird things that come along with that, I would say, as a modern day society. But we will get into that a little bit more in a bit. Before we get to that, what has been happening on the Lifestead? Well, I mentioned in last episode or the episode before that I'd had a bunch of really fun stuff delivered to my kitchen, and one of those things was an attachment for my KitchenAid mixer that was going to help me do some grinding, right? I was going to grind the wheat berries into flour, but what I was really excited about was grinding our gem corn into cornmeal. I was all about it. I was like, this is going to be so awesome. I'm going to be able to make my own cornmeal from an awesome cornbread recipe. This is going to be so great. So over the last couple of days, we've been trying that out. And here's what I want to tell you. Grinding wheat berries with this attachment, and it is not a name brand KitchenAid grinder attachment, or I should say grain mill. Is that what I should be saying? I don't know. This is for grinding the grains. So it's not a name brand. I'll try to remember to put actually what it is in the show notes. But with the wheat berries, it's awesome. I did some grinding of wheat berries, and then I made some buttermilk biscuits with it, and it was just fabulous. I was like, look at this pan of buttermilk biscuits I have made from wheat berries that I ground into flour. I was just feeling like it was a whole level up that day, and it was super cool. However, when we got to the corn, okay, the first time we tried to put the dried kernels of gem corn through the grinder, we immediately had issues, and we decided that was because the corn wasn't actually as dry as we thought it was. So we fixed that whole issue. We actually stuck the kernels of corn into our dehydrator and let them dehydrate and get really super dry overnight. And then the next day we tried to grind them, and they would grind, but they kept getting stuck. And so you'd have to turn off the KitchenAid mixer and get stuff unstuck and then turn it back on. And it was quite the process. And I was like, wait a second, these are dry now, so it should be working. I mean, this grain mill thing says that it should be, it should do corn. And I was just about to get in one of my groups and say, all right, what's going on? What am I doing wrong? When Lori from Common Sense Homesteading, a friend of mine, actually posted in my group that you got to be careful grinding corn with those KitchenAid type attachments, because even though it says that they can do it, you're going to burn out your KitchenAid mixer because it's something about the size of the kernels. They get stuck. It can't handle it. It's a big old mess. So having said that, if I am going to grind my own corn for cornmeal, I'm going to have to invest in a standalone corn grinder. Now that I've done a little bit more research, people are saying it doesn't work as well as they say it should. Those attachments that go on your KitchenAid mixer for corn, it's a little rough, and you're going to burn out your mixer. And the last thing I want to do is burn out my mixer. So I'm putting it out there into the world that I need a corn grinder, a standalone corn grinder. Maybe I'll find one at a local auction, because, I'm all about picking up stuff at the auction. What else has been happening? The soup series, still going on strong. Check that out on my YouTube or my website. I think we've got 13 different soup recipes going up this month, every Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So that has been a lot of fun. Been super busy in the kitchen. What else has been happening? I finally have things figured out about what's going to happen with the Farmish papers in 2025. So if you don't know, I have this snail mail newsletter. I've had it for, we're going into our 4th year here in 2025, and it's a monthly snail mail newsletter I have been sending out, and people really love it. I love doing it, but we had to make some changes because things is getting more expensive, and there were other issues that we needed to deal with. And so I have finally figured out how we are going to make that change. So as of 2025, we're in the process of making this big change. Instead of it being one monthly newsletter, I'm actually going to offer 3 different quarterly snail mail newsletters. And if you want to know more about this, you can go to my website of farmishkindoflife.com, look in the menu for where it says snail mail newsletter, and you will get all the information you need. Basically, I'm going to have 3 different quarterly snail mail newsletters. One is going to be the original Farmish papers, so it's going to be quarterly issues now, not monthly issues, where we're talking homesteading, we're talking barn, garden, kitchen stuff, how-tos, DIYs, reviews, all that stuff that comes along with homesteading and lifesteading. That will be sent out 4 times a year. The second option is going to be called Faith and Fence Posts. So that's going to be quarterly issues of faith-based ponderings from a Farmish gal's perspective. So that will be sent out 4 times a year. The third option is going to be called the Tin Roof Review. And that's going to be quarterly issues where I dive into more controversial topics and conspiracies and what's wrong with the world. And maybe it's a little spicier side of Amy for those of you who would like that. So there are 3 different options. They're all sent out 4 times a year. If you subscribe to all 3, you're still going to end up getting a monthly mailing. Do the math on that and it will make sense. We have some people who are confused because I'm saying they are quarterly mailings, and so they think there are 4 different things that I'm offering. No, they come out every quarter, so you're going to get it 4 times a year, but I'm offering 3 different options, and 4 times 3 is 12. So if you get all of them, you are still going to get a monthly mailing. And if you subscribe to all of them, there is also a discount. So head over to my website. I will also stick a link right to the page in the show notes. And all I'm doing right now is collecting interest. That you cannot subscribe to the new options yet. It's not set up. I'm just gathering interest so I can get email addresses of whoever is interested in whatever publication. And there is a spot on there to put your email address if you want all 3. So you don't have to go in and sign up as being interested in each individual one. So check that out. Let me know if you have any other questions. If you are a current subscriber, please go in and put your information on those interest lists, because that is what I'm going to be working off of when I change everything over. Also, there are some questions that current subscribers have had that are also answered on that page there at my website. So check that out. Let me know if you have any additional questions. I'm really excited to make this change. I think it's going to be awesome for everybody involved. All right. With that, let's head over to the main topic and talk about how we've got to fight for a right not to party, not just to party, but to get older. When a machine gets older, it breaks down. That's normal. I mean, you can do regular maintenance on it. You can take really good care of it, which you should. But eventually, as a machine gets older, it's going to start breaking down, right? We expect that. We accept it. We understand it. But somehow, this isn't supposed to hold true for the human body, apparently. When it comes to the human body getting older and breaking down, we fight it. And when we can't, we somehow feel like a failure. I've been thinking about this a lot lately. Have you ever considered that as you age, things are supposed to get a little harder physically? They're supposed to. And your body changes. It's supposed to. Your skin gets a little wrinkly, gets a little saggy in some spots. Have you ever considered that a 60-year-old should not be able to move like a 40-year-old? That doesn't make sense, really, right? And a 40-year-old usually can't do what they could do super easily at 20 years old, right? It seems logical and obvious when you put it like that. But if you look just about anywhere, as we get older, there's this sort of belief that's weaved through a lot of things that we're supposed to beat aging, right? Aging is something we're supposed to beat. We're supposed to fight it. And there's this like belief out there that we're more valuable in our aging if we don't look like we're aging. That we're more valuable in our aging if we can still move like someone 10 years younger, 20 years younger, 40 years younger, right? And I don't know, but there are a lot of mental gymnastics that need to take place in order for that to make any sort of sense to me. Except, not really, because once again, as with a lot of things in our world, all you have to do is follow the almighty dollar. Follow the money, right? How many products, how many social media pages, how many businesses and books and courses would not exist if we accepted that aging is something that happens and we stopped feeling bad about it? If we stopped feeling that aging was wrong or something we had to hide, or if it was something we could stop feeling like a failure about, how many of all those products and pages and businesses would not even exist? Now, this whole thing is a really complicated topic, and obviously, I am not a medical professional. There is normal wear and tear on your body, right? That comes with simply being alive and actually using your body. And then there's the abnormal breakdown of your body that comes from all the junk in our environment and all the junk in our food and all the junk that is everywhere. So this is a very complicated topic. There are ridiculous things in our food now. We've talked about that in a couple podcast episodes. There are odd little things in our food that other countries don't allow in their food products, but the United States absolutely gives the green light to in theirs. There's also added sugar in everything, and we know now that sugar contributes to inflammation, which causes all types of illnesses and conditions and all of that. There is also a difference in the breakdown of someone's body who works a lot of hours at a very physically demanding job, or they live a very physically demanding life. And then there's the breakdown in somebody's body of someone who's living a very sedentary life, a very sloth-like life, right? Both of those bodies break down, but they break down in different ways. So like the breakdown of someone's body living in 1875 is completely different than the breakdown of somebody's body who's living right now, right? We understand that. But regardless, as we get older, our body is used like a machine and it starts to break down. And again, we don't necessarily want to trash our bodies, right? Although I do know people who say they would like to skid to the finish line of their life with a body that was all used up, right? And I think we should take care of our bodies and all of that. I'm not saying we shouldn't. I just have this gut feeling that even if we do everything right, without this product and that pill, a 40-year-old is not going to look like or be able to move like a 20-year-old. An 80-year-old isn't going to be able to move like a 60-year-old or look like a 60-year-old. And why is that wrong? And why are we chasing that? Because we miss our youth? Or is it because we still want to be able to turn heads? Is it because we still want someone to say, wow, I didn't think you were that old. I thought you were like 20 years younger. Is it pride? Is it not wanting to ask for help with a task that we used to be able to do with half the effort and time as it takes now? Why are we chasing it? My great-grandma lived to be 101, I believe, and she was a big crocheter. She crocheted Afghans and dishcloths and all the things until pretty close to the end. And I have to believe that the reason her hands were still nimble was because she actually used them, right? And little side note, we were talking about this in a group the other day, and someone brought up the fact that kids nowadays, they are saying, don't have the dexterity that kids once had, because nowadays all the kids are doing touch swipe, scroll. You know, it's not hold a pencil, it's not cut with a scissors, it's not all these other things that kids used to do, because everything is so tech-based now. And so kids are actually losing the dexterity in their hands. So back to crocheting. My great-grandma crocheted a lot. And then there's me, and I also crochet, right? And I'm realizing it's slightly harder now to crochet than it was 10 years ago. And I had a friend tell me, maybe you should go in and maybe you should get that checked out because maybe you've got something going on. Like maybe the reason your hands hurt when you crochet is because you've got something going on. And I thought, maybe it's just that my hands are 10 years older. And I can't crochet for 4 hours straight like I used to when I was in my 30s. Maybe that's what it is. And I think part of this comes from us having a medical system, and I'm talking United States here. I don't know about anywhere else, but maybe part of this comes from us having a medical system that tries to convince us that every single thing that's off in our body, like, that's a little bit off, it feels a little different. We're kind of led to believe that everything that's off is like this potential sign of something horribly wrong, and we need to get to the doctor right now to get it checked out. And I think this gets worse as we get older because as we age, obviously, there are more things that change and there are more things that don't feel the same. Let's say you have a thumb that goes numb. Okay, or let's say you have your calf starts to hurt, just starts to bug you a little bit, right? There are some folks out there that will immediately call the doctor because they are freaked out that they are dying, and they make 40 different appointments to figure out what's going on. There are some people who are like that. And then there are other people who will say, my thumb is kind of numb. That's weird. Or, my calf has kind of been bothering me. And those people will keep an eye on it, right? And see if it affects their world or changes or gets worse. Two different types of people. I think we really cater to the people who are like, I need a doctor's appointment right away. This thing is changing in my body and I need to figure out what it is, right? I was recently reading a book, I think it was written about 50 years ago, in the early 70s, I think, if my math is correct. It's called Cookery of the Prairie Homesteader. It's actually a cookbook, but it's a bunch of stories within the recipes, okay? And it was written by a woman who was born 1900, and she grew up on the prairies of Montana. And such an interesting book. And there's this section in there that talks about all the home remedies that they used to use. And as you read her stories that are interspersed with the recipes for these home remedies, it becomes so clear. Like it just hits you in the face. There was no doctor you could just call. There was no doctor. You could just call up and be like, hey, got this ache, got this pain, got this thing, don't know what it is. There was no doctor you could just call. And we get mad nowadays because we have to wait to get into the doctor. And back in the day on the prairie, you weren't calling for a doctor unless you were on death's door. You were not. And sometimes even then, you were lucky if one would show up, depending on how far out you were. We can't even fathom that in our current world. And we want every little thing fixed. And we've been convinced that every creak and pop and ouch as we age is something that's wrong and something that shouldn't be happening and something we shouldn't have to deal with. So go to the doctor and get it fixed. Now, I realize there are folks out there who are older, who are in a lot of pain, and they are dealing with some serious stuff. And I hope you know that is not what I'm talking about. The point of this episode is that we age and stuff changes, and it doesn't mean we failed. And this whole thing about failing, feeling like I'm getting older and now everything's failing and I'm a failure because I can't do, X, Y, Z. What's the opposite of failing? Winning? So how do we know we won in this aging thing? Who's going to tell us? Who keeps track of that? Who hands out the prizes? And what are the prizes? I mean, if I'm going to be convinced, if you're going to try and convince me that at 45, I should be able to hop out of bed like I did when I was 23, or that my elbow should not constantly pop, or that I shouldn't have any issues lifting at the gym as much as I used to lift, or I shouldn't have any issues shaving off that pesky 5 to 10 pounds that just won't go away now. If someone's going to convince me of that, I want to know what the prizes are. What are the prizes for looking like a 40-year-old when you're 60? I want to know what they are. I want to know if it's worth it. Every friend and family member of mine who is at least a decade older than me has said, don't stop moving. That's the key. Don't stop moving, because if you rest, you rust. And sometimes it doesn't feel great to keep moving. And it makes you mad because you want to move like you did 20 years ago and you can't. So you think something is wrong. Or you think that continuing to move and do and be active should equate to the, hey, I look super amazing kind of benefits of 20 years ago. It's not as easy to drop weight. Your body changes shape. Even if you stay the same weight, your body doesn't look the same. It's not supposed to. And why is that wrong? Remember back in high school, and maybe this is a girl thing more than a guy thing, but you're back in high school and you're like, oh my God, I'm so fat. I'm just so fat. And then when you're 25, you realize you weren't as fat as you thought you were in high school. And you wish you had the body you had in high school. And then you're 35 and you wish you had the body you had when you were 25. And then you're 45 and you wish you had the body you had when you were 35. And it just continues on and on and on. And when will we stop and realize that things we can do right now are things we won't be able to do in 20 years? We're always looking back and going, oh, I can't do that anymore. I wish I was 20 years younger. Like, when are we going to stop and realize that everything you can do right now, you're probably not going to be able to do 10 years from now as fast or as easily or as well? When are we going to stop feeling like failures because we're a little bit more creaky when we get up in the morning? And instead, how about we focus on the fact we're able to get up another morning? Some of us are not chasing health. We're chasing youth. And while you can keep your body healthy, right, as it relates to your age, and I think that's important, I think you should do that, I don't think youth is something you should spend your time worrying about. And I think some of us need to be a little more honest with ourselves about identifying what we are chasing and why. When you're in the garden and you realize it's not quite as easy to get down on the ground anymore, do you head to the doctor? Or do you build raised garden beds? Or do you go back in the house and pout because being another year older has just made everything harder and the couch looks really inviting, so you just turn on Netflix and you throw popcorn at the screen while you look at every actor that you swear is older than you but looks better? The thing that I really have trouble wrapping my head around is that aging is a privilege that isn't granted to everybody. And yet, those of us who get to do it spend all of our time wishing that everything that came along with it wasn't happening. It is okay to get older, y'all. It's not something we're supposed to fight. It's not something we're supposed to beat. It's something we're supposed to do. Not everybody gets to. There you have it. Those are my thoughts for today. I hope it gave you a little something to think about. Make sure you head over to my website. Check out all those soup recipes that I am posting on my website and YouTube. And also check out the new setup for the Farmish papers that's going to be starting up in 2025. Put your name on an interest list if that is something that you want to continue or want to start up. And I will start sending out information about that sometime next month, probably. We will start getting things going and figured out for everybody so we can be ready to rock in 2025. Thank you so much for hanging out with me here today. I know that your time is precious, so every time you come back here and listen, I'm just so honored that you gave me moments that you literally can give to anything. So thank you so much for hanging out here, and I will talk to you again soon. Hope you enjoyed the show today. To continue the conversation, visit our website at afarmishkindoflife.com. Find A Farmish Kind of Life on social media or drop me an email at amy@afarmishkindoflife.com. Peace, love, and bacon, y'all. Stay Farmish.